Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to my 88 wonderful subscribers. I went down from 89. I guess I lost somebody. Oh well. I'll never pretend that my videos are like the best on the interwebs, and there are certainly a lot of people out there that have much greater content and much more entertaining ways to show that content than I do. But still, sorry to lose you, number 89. Love you, all 88. Now, this is the first time I've ever done two videos back to back, day to day. I did one yesterday that's about how to make money on buying and selling comics, and as I watched the short, for me, 12-minute video, I realized like I had really left a lot of information out. So I wanted to revisit the topic. So we're gonna call this "How to Make Money Buying and Selling Comic Books" Part 2. Who knows? There might be a Part 3. So welcome aboard, everybody. My initial thought for this channel was to give information for like newer collectors. I've referenced it before. If you have like 5 copies of Fantastic Four #1, if you've got 10 copies of Hulk 181, you probably do not need my tips or advice. But I work with so many young people where I would tell them, hey man, can you spare $100? Can you put aside maybe some of your recreational activities to cough up $100, and I can help you find a comic book that in very short order is going to double or triple your money. And they were always like, well, yeah, that sounds great, man. I'll get back to you. And didn't really follow through with it. And then in short order, not even a year later, I'd go, hey man, remember that comic book I was showing you that you could have got for $100? It's now selling all day long for 500. Oh yeah, man, I totally should have done that. I should have listened to you. And I'm like, well, cobble together some money. Let me help you. And I don't know if for some newer comic book collectors, it just doesn't seem real, or it's just coming up with the initial money that scares them. But my goal is to help. So, first off, I will say, if you're looking at any specific comic book, almost without exception, don't buy the first one you see. If you go to eBay, or if you're looking at Instagram, or wherever you're looking for comic books, it's really easy to get excited and let your emotions get a hold of you. We're like, here it is. This is the book I really wanted. I'm showing this one because this is a example personally where I really wanted this book, the very first appearance of Impossible Man. I really believe eventually the Impossible Man might show up in the movies. It's such a sort of comedic foil. It just screams Disney to me. No one's talking about this book. It is Fantastic Four #11, so it is not inexpensive. I bought this for $400 already CGC graded. That's right about now where fair market value is. It's one of those things. I just believe in it. At the end of the day, it's Fantastic Four #11. It is a decent grade of a 3.5, but I watched so many auctions. I mean, for well over a year that I watched this book, tried to find one in a grade that I could handle, that fit my budget, that presented the way that I wanted it to. And it, like I said, over a year, I looked at it. When this one showed up, it was already graded. So I was like, okay, cool. I don't have to spend the money to have it graded. I really liked the condition. I liked how the colors pop on this cover. And that's when I pulled the trigger. I did not overspend on this book. Now, one thing I'll add to the don't buy the first one you see is you don't want to wait too long, or you may miss the boat. Years back, Daredevil #1, decent grades, $800, $900, $1,000, very easily found. And I had other books on my radar, and I was like, oh man, whatever, $800 is a lot, $900 is a lot, and I'm chasing down this book. I'm chasing down this book. I'll just wait. I'll just wait. I'll just wait. Well, now, like a 0.5 coverless of that book is about $2,000. So at some point, maybe I just waited too long. Granted, I was putting my money to good use and finding other comic books I wanted. But there is a point to like where eventually you have to pounce, or it's just going to keep getting more expensive. I remember when I bought my Hulk 181 7.5 signed by Len Wein for $1,100. And I literally told my wife, I was like, if we don't get this now, it is going to exceed my grasp or what I'm willing to spend. I mean, if you've got $5,000-$6,000 to spend on a comic book, more power to you. I applaud you. That's awesome. That's just not me. So I'm glad I pounced on it when I did. A lot of this ties into like, don't overspend on a comic book. I'm going to show you something different. We'll show this one. It's really easy when you are emotionally invested in wanting to acquire a comic book for your collection to just want to get it. You want to own it. You want to have it. Auctions can be particularly deadly when it comes to that, where, it's in the final moments of the auction and you've bid $200 and all of a sudden somebody's $215 and now you're like, okay, $220 and they bid $250 and then you're like, no, and then all of a sudden like the auction ends and you're like, shit, I just overspent on that comic book. My tip and advice on that, I have in my head a price that I'm willing to pay for a book at auction. And I literally wait until there's like 3 seconds left in the auction. I place my bid and I'm out. Sometimes I win, sometimes I lose, but it keeps me to the budget that I had in my mind, where somebody else is not just like, oh, keep bidding, and I'm going to keep bidding and keep bidding. This book I wanted for a long, long time. I remember being at a comic book convention and it was on the wall for $600. And I had the money and I thought about buying it, but I was like, wait, let me go do some research. It wasn't graded. I was like, well, it didn't look like an 8.0, so that might be a little bit high. Let me hold off on it. Number 41. I'm just looking at some notes here, people. I got this for $194. Just a couple years back. This is not like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. This also goes into another tip and advice. If you're looking at auctions on eBay, look for auctions that have ended where perhaps no one bid. Because what's the goal of any seller? To sell the book, sell the item. They want the money. And there's a great quote, like, no one ever went broke taking a profit, but many people do go broke holding out for maximum profit. So if what they were asking for, the book was a little bit high and no one bid on it, in a respectful way, you can reach out to the seller and say, hey man, I saw that this auction ended and no one bid on it. I would be willing to pay this. What do you think? And I've had dozens and dozens of times where the seller's like, yeah, now that sounds great. So I was like, hey man, re-list it as a buy it now for the price we agreed on, and I will buy it immediately. Now, when I say I'll buy it immediately, that is exactly what I mean. I'm true to my word. They list it, I snatch it up, buy it now, PayPal, boom, done deal. This person had listed this as a 4.0. I thought it looked nicer. So I spent the $50, have it pressed, dry cleaned, and graded. It came back a 6.5, as you see. Currently, a 6.0 is almost $1,000. So I'm less than $250 in on this book, and it's currently worth $1,000. I think about that one I saw at, the Comic Con for $600, and I'm like, wow, man, I'm really glad that I just did not just jump on that, because I was so excited to see it and I wanted it. Okay, let's find something else. There's something else I think is important to mention is sometimes let comic books find you. Granted, there's books that we want to add to our collection, and so those are the ones we're searching for on eBay or Instagram or wherever, or you're at your LCS and flipping through the long boxes and you're trying to find that book, whatever it is. But don't keep your eyes closed to really amazing deals of maybe books that you weren't perhaps actively seeking. So me and my good buddy Chance, we were at the Marriott at the Comic Con, and there was some guy that had long boxes of Silver Age books that was listed at 50% off whatever he had them tagged for. So my friend, he's like, hey man, Silver Age, Marvel books are 50% off, blah, blah, blah. And he had gone through them, but he had missed this. This is actually the first appearance of Dormammu. So no one thinks I'm making stuff up. The guy had $100 on it. It was at a 50% off bin, so that was $50. This leads into ask for deals. I told the guy, I was like, hey man, will you take 40? And he was like, yes. Again, this is not 10 years ago. This is, probably just pre-COVID. So we'll call it like 3 years ago. So, I would put this at a 3, but it's the first appearance of Dormammu, and I got it for $40. Once again, I wasn't at the con like, oh, I've got to find the first appearance of Dormammu, because then I'd probably been looking at like people's wall books, and it would have been, $300, $400, $500, depending, graded, not graded, and that's what my price range would have been. But here I was just flipping through a long box and found this half off $100, and then I ask for a deal. There's nothing wrong in that. I've said it before. If a comic is worth $500 and you offer the guy $50, it makes you look like an ass, and just don't do it. They're not going to respond to you, and why waste your time? But in that situation, the guy was already at $50, half off. I could have been like, hey man, I'll give you 40. And he could have been like, no. And I would have paid the 50. I wouldn't have haggled him like, what about 43? What about 46? I just would have paid the 50. But he was like, okay. So immediately that saved me $10 just because I asked. Showing this book again, it's like sometimes deals can find you. Just start flipping through eBay, or where books that you're searching at, it prompts you for other books, and just start looking. You might find something, you might not be looking for the first appearance of Hobgoblin. You might not be looking for the first appearance of Elektra. but you might stumble upon it and find a great deal. So a lot of times books just find their way into our collection. Another thing I would say, especially when it comes to auctions, is pay attention to auctions that end at really, really late times. I understand there's a lot of time zones, not just across this country, but globally. But sometimes I'm like, okay, well, this auction's ending at 3 a.m. How many people are up on their computer just like, yeah, I'm going to nail this down. I got this for $230. Fantastic Four number 6 came back a 4.0. I'm trying to look on my notes here. This is about a $1,200 book right now. I saw the auction was ending at like 3 a.m. It set some notifications to my phone. I had to go to work the next morning, and I was sort of excited to make a bid because there was like 0 bids on it. And so somewhere around like, I don't know, midnight, 1 a.m., I was like, you know what? Here's my bid, $230. We'll see what happens. And I won it, and there was no other bidders, just because I think the time frame where this auction ended, most people were asleep and they weren't paying attention to it. Another good tip: look for auctions on holidays, right? Because most people on Thanksgiving, they're not necessarily, watching comic book auctions on eBay. New Year's Eve, most people are not watching comic book video or comic book auctions on eBay. So sometimes you can take advantage of that where people aren't, a lot of people aren't engaged in the pursuit of comic books because there's other stuff going on. Once again, Chris on the We Love Comics channel, like one of his tips and advice is he would be searching for a book and he just would keep hitting refresh to see for a newly listed of that and looking for that right opportunity of a buy it now that perhaps was significantly lower than fair market value, where, it's like, yeah, dude, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. And then it was just like, boom, buy it now. Some of this goes into like, you've got to put in the work. If you just think key issues are going to fall out of the sky into your lap, I mean, you might be lucky and that might happen, but by putting in the work and looking for books and being, I'll use the word relentless, to like, I am going to find this book at a price I want. And if you keep at it, you can. I mean, people would be lining up for this book at $230 around the block. Another thing I would add is sometimes there's books that people just don't want or they don't think they want. This has binder holes. It's such a shock to me of how amazing the condition of this book is. And it does say white pages. Because somebody put it in a binder, I mean, this thing looks nearly off the rack new, and it came out in 1962. So I'm sure a lot of people were off put by like, oh man, there's binder holes, and I would never buy that. Cool. Buy what you love. If that bothers you, if restoration bothers you, if facsimile covers bother you, if some kid wrote his name, Billy, on the front cover and that bothers you, you don't have to buy those books. However, all the people that do not bid on that book because they might feel it's some off-putting, air quote, defect, creates less competition for me as a purchaser. So like I said, this is graded a 4.0 despite the binder holes. It is graded a 4.0, Fantastic Four, number 6, second appearance of Doctor Doom, second Silver Age appearance of Submariner, first supervillain team up, number 6 at a 4.0, and I bought this for $230. And it looks great. There are no hunks missing out. There are no huge creases across the cover. And so I'm sure there's a lot of people that, passed on this book that right now would be happy to pay me 3 times what I spent on it. Auctions that nobody has bid on. This is an important technique, I think. Once again, going back to, hold on, I'm trying to find a book. The seller's goal is to sell the book. If the auctions ended and they made no money, they might be willing to take a little bit less money to actually sell the book, which was their intention to begin with. I have sometimes not even waited until the auction has ended. I've been like, hey man, your auction was for, whatever, a 7-day listing. We're down to 1 day and 1 day left and no one's bid on it. Can we agree to some kind of terms? I bought this for $15. Granted, right now, a 9.6 of this book is $120. I think this is every bit a 9.6. I mean, to my non-professional grading eyes, I mean, it looks near perfect. So $15. I'll probably eventually spend the $50 to have it graded. I think eventually, Spawn has not seen the last light of day. Talking about emotions. I was watching this and it was an auction. It was late at night and I was like, yeah, man, I'm going to grab this. And I didn't think anybody else was watching it. So I put a bid and immediately somebody else put in a bid. And in short order, this got up to $150. And I was like, oh, you know what, man, this person really wants it. I'm tapping out. I continued to do a search. I found this the same evening for $82. So almost half of the $150 that auction had gone to. And honestly, I think this is nicer. Currently, a 4.0 of this is worth $150. I definitely think that, a 4.0, no problem. 4.5, probably no problem. Possibly a 5. So I wasn't afraid to let the one go because, there's certainly some rare comics out there for sure, but most of them aren't. There's very few comics that you can't look up on eBay and see dozens and dozens of listings for the same book. And if you wait a week and you type in the same book, there's going to be dozens and dozens and dozens of more listings for the same book. They're not that scarce of commodity. So once again, you don't have to buy the first one you see. You can wait a little bit and find the one that fits your budget. I got this for $130. 5.0, this book is almost double that, almost $300. I might eventually have this graded. This was one of those sort of like, unlooked for things. It's the second appearance of the Scorpion, and I've got the first appearance, ASM 20, but I think Scorpion's gonna happen. So I was like, yeah, man, you know what? I'm gonna get the second appearance. I bought this on eBay for $60. And some kid had actually, or like the power had written like featuring the super power of Iron Man. And my local post office misplaced it. And they reimbursed me the $60, but I was like, yeah, and I've done a video talking about this. It's like, dude, this is not a teapot from Walmart. I can't just like $60 and go find another one in the same grade, in the same condition, and boom. So I was like, and I had watched that one for a long time. So I kept watching, and I kept watching, and not too long later, 3 months, 4 months later, I found this one in a better condition for less. I mean, it wasn't tons less, but like $8 less. But I didn't give up on it. So, that's an important lesson too. Don't give up on books. If you hit a stumbling block, hit a wall, like don't throw up your hands and go, oh no, I guess I'll never own that book. If that's your approach, then no, you won't. So this is a book I wanted forever. I so lusted after this book, and I'm gonna get this graded. This is actually signed by Al Williamson. I got this for $300. A 4.0, this book is $500. A 6.0 is $875, and that doesn't include it being signed. Years ago, when I was lusting after this book, I probably would have spent more on one that is not as good a condition and certainly not signed, because my emotions got the better of me because I just really, really wanted it. Some other ones. Notes. Got that for $130. I got this for $140. Don't have price on this, but this went back to like where I just assumed all these early Iron Man appearances were just ghastly expensive. And so I didn't even bother to look until I started to look. And like, $100, $140, $130. This is not unobtainium. Now, I'll put this one at a 253 tops. I'll put this one at a 455 tops. I'll put this one at a 3.5, maybe a 4. Selling books and then getting them back in your collection. I got a really good deal on this book a couple years ago. Had it graded, came back a 4. Sold it. Had seller's remorse. Found this for cheaper than I had sold mine. And I think this is going to come back a 4 or 5. So as opposed to just lamenting, oh no, I sold that book and I'll never have it back and I'll never make money on it. It's like, yeah, well, books that find you. While I was searching for that, I found this guy. This is really nice. For a Golden Age book, if this a 665, I would not be shocked. 27. I spent $200 on this. A 5.5 is $450. And once again, this book found me. And I was like, wow, for a white, background cover and like this is from the 50s. I was like, this looks really, really nice. I also reached out to the seller and asked for a deal, which I got. So I'm just going to leave it with this weird science fantasy. You can make money buying and selling comics if you follow a couple of easy to follow principles. Don't buy the first one you see. Don't let emotion take over. Don't overspend because your emotion's taken over. Don't be afraid to reach out to sellers and ask for deals. Let books find you, maybe ones that you weren't looking for. Put in the work. Look for ending listings that nobody bid on. Another thing I would say is spread the word that you collect comics. Not totally valuable, but like I got a stack of comic books that one included Infinity Gauntlet #1 because my wife's sister knows I collect comic books and had randomly mentioned it to a coworker of hers at the bank who was like, oh, I've got this stack of comic books that I don't really care about. Would he like to have them? She texted me and I was like, sure, yes, I would like to have them. This Infinity Gauntlet #1, it's probably like a 9.6. Like, once again, it's not insanely valuable, but putting out the word that you collect comics might also bring comics into your, your little realm just because you let people know that you did collect comics. So, this is Daniel at the Krakenslair Comics. There might be a part 3 to this video, but I hope you enjoyed this one. And everybody enjoy comics, enjoy comic book collecting. Have a great evening.